Hey everyone, I've been excited to do this video for some time now. I wanted to take you through some of my bookshelves here. I bet that I have in excess of like 700 books, so I won't bore you to death with each and every one of them. But I wanted to take you through some of the most important ones, what I've read, my favorites, books I'm likely to unhaul, how you can collect really great pieces of literature on a budget. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, so I have three main bookshelves which I built. The books are individually organized more in sequence of size and shape. That being the case, the genre will be somewhat random. It'll go from like politics to fiction to philosophy, to psychology, history, classics, and so on. I don't have many series, as my taste up until lately have steered me more towards nonfiction. That said, don't click away because I do have some great fiction in here. Now, as time goes on, I do intend to explore more fantasy and young adult stuff, because that seems to be the most popular on booktube here. So I could really use your help with some recommendations, guys, if you don't mind. Anyway, let's start with this main bookcase here. So this one has 7 shelves and holds about 250 books. A lot of the books I've read on NetGalley or from the library are not on here. Let's start with this bottom shelf where I keep all of my oversized photo books and whatnot. There are definitely some items I'm not likely to get around to on here. This is probably my favorite set. It's the complete Collier's unabridged collection of Charles Dickens works. Now, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out precisely how old these are. I imagine they got to be quite vintage though, because as you'll see in a moment, it was done on those old printing presses, which is pretty cool. Ain't that a thing of beauty? Look at that. I've never read any Charles Dickens, to be perfectly honest, but I sure intend to. I'm pretty intimidated, actually. I have no idea where to start. I suppose I could start with the most popular, Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations, Christmas Carol, Oliver Twist, David Copperfield. I think I'm going to buy some cheap paperbacks, though. I mean, look at that fine print. I'm going to go blind on that. For you Dickensian diehards out there who've read his entire corpus, how would you approach this? Like, in what order would you tackle it if you could do it all over again? Let me know in the comments, alright? I'm going to move on in a second here, but look at these illustrations. They're all throughout this entire collection. Next, I have this illustrated history of the world's greatest submarines, which is pretty useful if you're reading through like World War II history or something, but I guess Google has made it kind of redundant. Still, it's good for the coffee table. Some amazing photography in this one too. As mentioned, I'm not likely to read through all of these. The Kennedy years looks pretty interesting though. This is some select reportage from the New York Times during his tenure. Nelson Mandela, yeah, I'd probably spend some time on this one. I'm ashamed I don't know more about him than I do. Kings and Queens of Europe, The Dark Secrets of Europe's Monarchies. How salacious. This is a set I found on clearance at Indigo, and yeah, I'd probably work through these. I mean, I have a fascination with the criminal mind. And don't judge me, I know some of you do too. I love the mafia stories. It's, I don't know, probably just too much Martin Scorsese or something. I've read enough World War II stuff for now, so maybe I'll come back to this down the road. I was recently gifted an advanced reading copy of a book called The Black Intellectual Tradition. And so it's given me a whole new interest in Africana and just the struggle of black people in America. So I'll definitely come back to this one too. This talks about Hitler's Air Force, the Luftwaffe, from 1933 to 1945 by Chris McNabb. This one documents some of the most potent speeches delivered by history's greatest revolutionaries. Over 500 of the world's must-visit cities. Hey, now we're talking. For you wine lovers out there, give Canada a chance every now and again. We got some great product up here, man. Some more stuff from World War II. This is Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, and I'm definitely going to get around to this one too. For those of you who know that I'm pivoting more towards reading classics, this is pretty high up on the list for me. The complete works of Shakespeare. Sure is nice to see things finally going his way after all these centuries, isn't it? On with the second shelf, we've got some excellent Americana and even some fiction too. Cultures of War elaborates on Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, 9/11, and Iraq. I've read a little bit about World War I, and this work basically marks the centenary of it, where the Antiques Roadshow went to Somme to examine a unique set of family heirlooms. Lincoln in the World by Kevin Perrino. Indomitable Will by Mark Updegrove. I definitely want to learn more about LBJ. He was kind of dealt a bad hand, and I think he might have been a better president had things worked out a little different for him. As we'll get into in a little while, I'm a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes, and I've inadvertently become something of a collector of Sherlock Apocrypha. This one is Mycroft Holmes by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Anna Waterhouse. I also have here The Fifth Heart by Dan Simmons. I have a great suggestion for you collectors out there. Typically, at most bookshops, you're going to spend anywhere from $30 to $50 for these Canterbury classics. They're beautifully leather bound with gilded edges. They're just awesome. Well, if you go to Costco, you can pick them up for anywhere from $10 to $15 each. So that's how I got these. Some commentary on the Enlightenment called Fire and Light by James McGregor Burns. Ministers at War by Jonathan Schneer. I have a big interest in the Civil War too, and we're going to talk about that briefly here. This one's kind of like that Antiques Roadshow book. Zealot by Reza Aslan. Like the guy, not crazy about his views, and no, it's not because I'm a Christian either. The End of Greatness by Aaron David Miller. I haven't read this one, but I have read his other work called The Much Too Promised Land. I highly recommend it. He was one of the foremost diplomats who worked for decades on brokering a peace with Israel and Palestine. He's always worth a read, so I'll probably come back to this one, even though he's not talking about Israel and Palestine. This looks pretty fascinating. Presently, I'm reading that classic, For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. I'm also a big fan of George Orwell. I've read some nonfiction on the Spanish Civil War, which we'll talk about soon. So yeah, I would come back to this too. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. That's probably going to take me a month to get through. The Fantastic Laboratory of Dr. Weigel by Arthur Allen. This is about the Armenian genocide called The Great Fire by Lou Urinek. Some excellent nonfiction on pirates and the maritime hegemony of Portugal. Okay, so moving on to the third shelf, we got a bit of a mishmash of everything in here. I'm not a religious person at all, but I love this book. Now you got to sift through a lot of Christendom, but there's still some other great illustrations in here with no connection to religion, so I really like this one. Hard Choices by Hillary Clinton. This basically just documents her time as Secretary of State. Say what you will about Hillary, yeah, she's got some dirt under her fingernails, but I think she's got a valuable perspective. Napoleon by Andrew Roberts. Now look, if this was about half that size, if it was like 400 pages shorter, I would probably make it a priority, but I don't have time for 800 pages on Napoleon, I'm sorry. That said, and I know this won't translate well on video, but this paper they used is absolutely exquisite. I don't know what they did. I think they mixed milk into it or something. The Joy of Pain by Richard Smith, which talks all about Schadenfreude. Some history on religiously motivated violence. A biography on Churchill by Violet Bonham Carter. Some investment and management advice from the Oracle of Omaha. I can never get enough of John Grisham. Citizen Hollywood, College Disrupted, Overruled, The Reproach of Hunger, The House of Outrageous Fortune, Recasting India, Within Arm's Length. I bought all of these off booksoutlet.com, which is great, guys. If you haven't been there, definitely check them out. Capture by Dr. David Kessler. The Great Deformation by David Stockman. Now here's 800 pages I'd make some time for. Talks all about what led to the financial crash of 2007 and 2008. Got some more war history for you here. Potsdam by Michael Nyberg. The Chaos of Empire by John Wilson. An Enemy at the Gates by William Craig. No, not the theologian William Lane Craig. Shrinks by Dr. Jeffrey Lieberman. This is a collection of Mark Twain's 5 most popular novels. I am definitely going to get around to this, especially as I'm focusing more on classics. I absolutely love Mark Twain. He's amazing. I've read a little bit by him, but I've mainly just read a lot about Samuel Clemens. He was incredible. Okay, now on to the fourth shelf. I've read most of these books on this shelf. I'm up to about here. As stated earlier, I'm a huge fan of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is the complete anthology of Sherlock Holmes. Everything Doyle wrote on Sherlock Holmes is in here. And yes, I completed it. It was so much fun. While it's quite heavy, it is such a pleasure to read out of this. I wouldn't have read it any other way. America Aflame by David Goldfield. Now, this guy is an incredible historian. He did such a great job on this. I picked this up for $5 at Indigo on clearance. I love the cover. The artwork is just amazing. Talks all about the Civil War, what led up to it, and the Reconstruction period. Highly recommended. The Fall of the Ottomans by Eugene Rogan. Another exceptional historian scholar. Obviously, this is from the perspective of the Middle East during World War I, and it will break your heart. The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion by Jonathan Haidt. I love Jonathan Haidt, guys. I've read a few of his works. He's tremendous. He's a very palatable, low-voltage atheist, unlike many of the new atheists nowadays. He and his colleagues basically wrote the book on moral foundations theory. Some more Hillary goddamn Clinton. Now again, say what you will that this is just Hillary complaining about how she lost the election, but you know what? Following January 6th, yeah, I think history is going to treat this book okay. American Spring by Walter Bornemann. Kind of dry in its delivery, but not a bad read. The Parliament of Man by Paul Kennedy. And no, not CBC's Paul Kennedy. This is probably one of my favorite books, actually. It'll restore your faith not only in the United Nations, but humanity itself. This is Sir Richard Burton's translation of the Arabian Nights. It was bound by Canterbury Classics, beautifully leather bound and gilded, all that. I had such a good experience reading this. Again, the pages are just exquisite. There's a reason why these stories have survived several centuries, you know? I had no idea before reading this why it was so important to the Arab world. Giant of the Senate by Al Franken. You know, he's pretty funny. I didn't mind reading this one. It wasn't the most profound by any means, but it was worth it. Willful Blindness by Margaret Heffernan. This was actually my first readathon, and I remember having a really great time with it. This is a fantastic exploration into the psychology of cognitive bias and why we're so disposed to wish thinking. Divinity of Doubt by Vincent Bugliosi. He's gone now. I think he died about 10 years ago. And for those of you who don't remember, he was the prosecutor of Charles Manson, and this is him taking on the God question. The Last Empire by Seti Plochy, and he basically chronicles the last few days of the Soviet Union. The Rage Against God by Peter Hitchens. Now, you know what, guys? This one was actually pretty good. It was kind of written as a rebuttal to his late brother, you know, the famous atheist Christopher Hitchens, and his bestseller, God Is Not Great. Now, while he didn't convince me to his side of the argument and Christianity by any means, he does mount a pretty devastating objection to atheism, political atheism, that is. It's worth a read. He did a good job. We have some great nonfiction here on neuroplasticity called The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge. Definitely worth a read too, highly recommended. Caught in the Revolution by Helen Rappaport. Now, this was a pretty interesting history. It wasn't written dryly at all. It's all about the fall of the Tsar and Leninism and, you know, the rise of the Soviet Union, basically. Censors at Work by Robert Darnton. This examines some of the great literary works from the Ancien regime in France, British Raj, East Germany, the negative and positive aspects of censorship, and, per the subtext, how states shaped literature. Hell in Good Company by Richard Rhodes, some Spanish Civil War history that I really enjoyed. The Man Who Wasn't There by Anil Ananthaswamy. This is a great book on philosophy of mind. Why Does the World Exist by Jim Holt. Kind of an exploration into metaphysics. Cured by Jeffrey Rediger. This is an inspiring read, guys. You want to talk about spontaneous remissions of all kinds of diseases? Taking control of your health? This will change your life. Tides of Mind by David Galanter. He's a professor of computer science, and it's a philosophy of mind book with a really unique writing style. Looking back on it now, it was actually kind of wacky, but like not in a bad way though, as odd as that sounds. It was really neat. How to Argue and Win Every Time, written by one of the world's greatest litigators, Jerry Spence. Republic of Spin by David Greenberg. Kind of explores presidential image craft over the past 100 years. Stop right there. Hold up. All right, peeps, so I'm just going to interrupt for a second right here. I want to show you something. You see that ratio? Look at that. 86%. 86 freaking percent of you watching are not subscribed. Why don't you like me? What are you even doing anyways? So the next time we see this little animation, what are we gonna do? Damn straight. Okay, I hate to have to set you straight like that, but it's for your own good. I don't want to have this conversation again, you understand? Anyways, as I was saying. Value and Values by Mark Carney. This was another amazing work. I just read this last month. Some more naval history here. Give Me a Fast Ship by Tim McGrath. The Twilight Years by Richard Overy. This examines some of the communique between Roosevelt and Stalin, written by Susan Butler. Okay, moving on to the fifth shelf here. This too is another mishmash of all kinds of interests I have. You'll notice here along the bottom all these barcodes. I swear to God, I did not rob the library, okay? What happened was, here in Victoria, we have what's called Friends of the Library sale, where they invite people to just pay $10. You know, you bring some bags and you take as many books as you like. And so I loaded the trunk of my car at the time full of books, and that's where a lot of my books came from, actually. This is another pile I've read. Truth Be Told by Beverly McLaughlin, just read that last month. The First and Winning Arguments by Stanley Fish. The End of Faith by Sam Harris. 1984, An Animal Farm by George Orwell. And 2084 by John Lennox. Bunch of bookmarks that I keep in the corner. All right, let's move on to the sixth shelf here. This is all paperbacks. They're all sort of miscellaneous sizes and so on. This looks kind of fun. Blame It on the Dog, A Modern History of Farts by Jim Dawson. We got some classic mythology here. Denial by Beverly McLaughlin. I just read this. This is a riveting courtroom drama written by the former Chief Justice of the Canadian Supreme Court. The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. Again, I just love this guy. I think he's one of the most positive atheists I've read. Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. This too was an amazing book, guys. You should definitely read this. Not dissimilar to that Jeffrey Rediger book I mentioned earlier called Cured. It's all about the science of spontaneous remission of, well, supposedly incurable and intractable conditions. It's all about how you can take control over your health. I highly recommend it. The Quran and the King James. Hey, settle down, guys. Just get along, all right? It's just a bookshelf. There's room for the both of you, okay? Palestine. Peace. Not apartheid. Jimmy Carter. I definitely want to get around to this one. And yet, here are some essays by Christopher Hitchens. I definitely have my disagreements with Hitch, but I think politically he was a very savvy, intelligent person. Some writings from the Holocaust. I'm taking a break from this sort of reading for a while, but I do intend to come back to it. Here's another cluster of books I've read, not in any particular order. The View from Nowhere by Thomas Nagel. Absolutely loved it. He's one of my favorite writers and philosophers. I don't have them on my shelf, but I've also read Mind and Cosmos and The Last Word. He's just an amazing thinker. The Bible on Earth by Israel Finkelstein and Neil Asher Silverman. Informative. The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. Hated it. God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens. We definitely have our differences of opinion here, especially on this work, but Hitch gets a pass in my books. I don't know why I'm willing to extend it to him, but not Richard Dawkins. I don't know. Tell me in the comments what you think of that. Republic of Fear by Kenan Makia. As you'll notice, Samir al-Khalil was actually his nom de plume, and I read this on the recommendation of Christopher Hitchens. Kenan Makia is a very insightful man. Syrian Dust by Francesca Borai. This will move you to tears. Men Are From Mars, Women Are Obsessed with Penis. What? And on with my seventh and final shelf, which holds my Arcturus collection. I mentioned this in another video, guys. Arcturus is a really good way of collecting classics and philosophy books. You can pick these up at Indigo for $6 a piece, or else 3 of them for $10. 7 Pillars of Wisdom by Lawrence of Arabia. I really want to get around to this one too. A Brief History of the Magna Carta by Geoffrey Hindley. Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. I'm just polishing off the last few pages of this one. It was part of my TBR for October, so you should be seeing a review and a wrap-up for this pretty soon. After that, I'll be reading Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell and The Republic by Plato. Actually, while I'm at it here, I'll take you through my entire collection of Arcturus classic novels. Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. The Jungle Book by Rudy Kipp. Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. Some more Hemingway here with A Farewell to Arms. The Iliad. The Odyssey. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Stevenson. Henry James' The Ambassadors. Ill Met by Moonlight. Fathers and Sons. Some C.S. Lewis. Some of the most influential philosophical works on Western thought. On the Origin of Species by Darwin. Meditations by that great Stoic Marcus Aurelius. The Rights of Man by Thomas Paine. On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. The Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx. Beyond Good and Evil by Nietzsche. The Dialogues of Socrates by Plato. The Social Contract by Rousseau. Penzias by Blaise Pascal. The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. Some World War I poetry. The Poetry of Breaking Bad's Mr. White. Wow, that one's nerdy. Walden by Henry David Thoreau. This collection always makes me smile because it makes me think of that old limerick. John Stuart Mill, of his own free will, on half a pint of shandy was particularly ill. Plato, they say, could stick it away half a crate of whiskey every day. Aristotle was a bugger for the bottle. Hobbes is fond of his dram. And Rene Descartes was a drunken fart. I drink, therefore I am. Cheers. Les Miserables. I think I'll read this one once I get through Tolstoy. I really love how Word Cloud Classics binds their books, but the only criticism I have is their print is always way too fine. The Great Whale. I like how this is bound too. It's got some of America's greatest speeches in here. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, but I've since left, of course, and I can't bring myself to get rid of these. You'll notice on the bottom of my small bookshelf I've got some JW literature in there as well. Now on the bottom of this next bookcase I've got some autobiographical works of Mark Twain. This set is actually 3-piece, but I don't have the first volume. I know where I can get it. They've got a few of these actually at Russell's Books, and I intend to pick that up. More Second World War history, more JW stuff, but it's in good company with this atheist material here. I've got Cult Insanity, Heretic, Bill Maher, and Christopher Hitchens. I really want to read this one, but it's hard to make a priority out of it because this is getting to be ancient history now. But it's the prosecution of George W. Bush for murder. This is all about, invading Iraq, and it was written by Vincent Bugliosi as well. Okay, and we got some fiction and politics on here. The Da Vinci Code, this is the only Dan Brown book I've read, but I liked it. I've read a fair amount out of this one. It's a neat book. It's a collection of humorists that were contemporaries of Mark Twain. Obama and the Future of American Politics, some more stuff on religious fundamentalism racing towards Armageddon, and I've got a lot more fiction on this one here, stuff I actually intend to get around to, some John Grisham, some Dan Brown, and as intimidated as I am, some James Joyce. So I will probably get around to these. I'm also a fan of The Godfather by Mario Puzo. Have any of you read The Charlemagne Pursuit by Steve Barry? This looks like a pretty neat novel. What did you think of it? Let me know. And on with the last bookcase. There's a lot of stuff on here that I'll probably unhaul at some point. But I'm a fan of Michael Jackson and Lady Diana. Empire of Sin by Gary Christ. Aside from just being an awesome book cover, I'm a huge jazz fan, and so this looks really appealing. This was gifted to me, and I'll make time for this at some point too. This is arguably Kafka's greatest work, and I do intend to get around to this quite soon. Some Kingsley Amis, that's Martin's father. This is Daryl Eve's new book, and as a student of YouTube, I really should take this one seriously. Since losing Larry King last year, I am interested in this one too, Powerful Prayers. Now, he's interesting because in his later years, he did identify as an atheist. But of course, I don't see him as, kind of the typical atheist. He still believed in something of an afterlife. So yeah, I'd be interested in reading this at some point. On to another cubby here, The Burning of the White House by James Cook. I love this book too, but it's missing its spine, so I don't know the name of it. It's basically a collection of great quotes, and there's some really good stuff in here, guys. Leningrad, Siege and Symphony by Brian Moynihan. The World's War by David Olusoga, that's on the First World War. This kind of fits in with those other books by Doctors Dispenza and Rediger. It's called Mind Over Meds by Andrew Weil, and it's kind of about spontaneous remission and the limitations of modern pharmaceuticals. Some more World War I stuff here with Hell Before Breakfast. Another pile of books I haven't really organized. We got some Don Quixote, Plato's The Laws. Now, I'm very skeptical towards the supernatural and superstition and all that sort of thing, but this book is kind of neat. I still like ghost stories. Any of you like that? Let me know in the comments below. Treasure Island by Robert Stevenson. Hey, this should be with my Arcturus classics. Another cubby here. This is another beautifully leather-bound Canterbury Classics collection of Jane Austen's most important novels. We got here some Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, and Northanger Abbey. On with the next cubby. Now this is really cool. This is just part of my Britannica set of philosophers and influential thinkers, scientists. I've got basically every influential philosopher on the West here, all the names you'd expect. Got here some Greek mythology and some Nordic mythology. On with the next cubby. There's a few really good works in here too. This is the complete coverage of World War II from the New York Times. Another beautifully illustrated version of the Divine Comedy and Paradise Lost. Another stack here. I read The Richest Man in Babylon. That's a great business classic. And this is like the Bible of the business world, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Some evolutionary biology here, Improbable Destinies by Jonathan Lassos. This is kind of dated, but I'm sure it's good for a laugh. It's Al Franken's Lies and the Lying Liars Who Tell Them. Love that title. This is 1924 by Peter Range. Talks about Hitler when he was sent to prison. Some more Sherlock Apocrypha. Another stack here. A new Aristotle reader, and we also got the journals of Lewis and Clark. That looks really cool too. I will likely unhaul most of these at some point, with the exception of The Word Detective here by John Simpson. Kind of talks about the development of the Oxford English Dictionary. Here's the rest of my Britannica set. As I said, I've got all of the main philosophers you can think of and important thinkers of the West, and even Eastern philosophy too, actually. I don't care who you are, some chicken soup for the soul is good for anybody. Another cubby download here at some point, although I will read that Lost Symbol by Dan Brown. Another mishmash of fiction. Do I have too much Sherlock Apocrypha here? Let me know in the comments. All of this John Grisham came from that library sale, guys. Sometimes you can get some really good stuff. Some audiobooks and some other miscellaneous items. I will probably unload most of this as well. One of my favorite books of all time, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This one will just destroy you in a good way. I will probably read this at some point here, Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, but I think I'm going to read the entire set. Another business classic. This was written early in the 20th century, and it's a good book, There are some things in there that are unsavory, but I think it's a good one. These two are likely to be unhauled, especially that Portable Atheist by Christopher Hitchens. Again, I love Christopher Hitchens, but if somebody has to give you your rebuttals, has to formulate your arguments for you, you're probably in a cult. The Second World War by Anthony Beevor. Now, this is a beautiful book. I mean, a great piece of scholarship. It's 800 pieces long, meticulously researched. And I got to about page 600, and then I DNF'd it. I have to come back to it, but it was too much bloody war for me. I had to bow out. And it's really why I have very little stomach for war history now, but I will get back to it. I think it's important to read this stuff, even if it traumatizes you a little bit. It's important history, but I just need a break. Okay, so there it is, guys. Those are my bookshelves. If you've read any of these, let me know in the comments below. I'll probably do an organize my shelves video at some point, so please leave some suggestions down there as well. You know, I'd really like to know what you guys would do with this little study. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again hopefully very soon. Until then. Hey everyone, I hope you liked this video. We put up some incredibly transformative content on this channel. If you want more like the one you just watched, click the suggested video on this screen. Make sure you subscribe, and to connect with me on my other platforms, my handles are linked below in the description, alright? Take care, peeps. Till next time.